Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Income is the Outcome, where we believe it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Kristin Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the founder and president of the Whistler Agency, Tim Whistler. We're so glad you're joining us today. The title of today's show is The Unique Retirement Planning Needs That Women Face. And whether you yourself are a woman or you have a woman in your life who you love, you are not going to want to miss this important conversation I'm going to be having today with Tim. Tim, my friend, I'm so excited to be here with you, as I always am, but especially for this topic. How are you this week?
I'm well, Kristin. Thank you. It's always great to be here with you as well.
Well, thank you. Well, I am so honored that you want to have this conversation. You know, the reality is a lot of financial professionals shy away from having this conversation, but it is very important because the reality is, like it or not, women do need to engage in more financial planning than men. So again, we're going to talk about what some of these challenges are that women face, and then most importantly, the solutions. And this is really a conversation that I know is near and dear to your heart, having helped so many women navigate through retirement and really helping them and empowering them to retire securely.
Absolutely. You know, it's one of these things where, in fact, it's ironic that, you know, here recently, as we've been talking on the show, how I've been so blessed to have been asked to be a contributor to that monthly publication called Experience Health.
Yes.
And what was really, you know, eye-opening about that conversation was with the account manager who brought that idea to me, and how she was just describing herself. And she said, you know, I've heard your content on the radio. She goes, I've heard, you know, I've listened to some of your podcast episodes. And she goes, your message would be really helpful to single ladies. And she said, because I became one. And it was not my plan. And just the way she said that, I thought, holy cow, you know, shame on me for not thinking about this ahead of time. But she said, it just really is helpful for so many ladies who have now gone into this journey all by themselves because of either divorce or becoming a widow, that we just want to help them understand this new foreign language known as retirement, and now they're doing this retirement plan by themselves.
Yes, well, and you know this about my story too, that when I first started off in the industry, I spent the first year traveling nationwide, presenting only to female audiences about this very important subject. And I think that's the challenge for folks to understand is a lot of what we're going to be talking today applies to everybody, right?
Absolutely.
But specifically for women, there are some unique challenges that we face. And so that's what we want to start off today's show, just kind of setting up the context for why we are having this specific conversation. So from your point of view, Tim, what are some of these unique challenges? Why do women face unique challenges when it comes to retirement planning?
You know, I think there's two key elements that cause that issue. I think number one is the difference between wages of men and women, and number two, the longevity. You know, so for example, when I think of wages, I think of, you know, the childhood that I had growing up. My dad was a blue collar guy, electrician for Caterpillar. And my mom was a full-time stay-at-home mom for myself and my younger sister. Now, whenever my sister and I got to a certain age, we're a little more independent, mom went out and got some part-time jobs, right? But that wasn't really her focus. So, you know, therefore, as ladies are mothers, they're raising their kiddos. And as they age, now all of a sudden they may become a caregiver to mom or dad who are aging and maybe ailing in health. Therefore, their wages can be a little bit less. Number two, there's longevity. You know, actuaries will say that ladies live longer than men. I think a lot of times it's because most guys are like, hey, let's try this. What could be, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen, right? Something goes wrong. Ladies aren't not quite that much of a risk taker, so they tend to outlive us. So I think those two elements, maybe of reduced wages during the income producing years, and the longer that we live, can create some challenges for ladies throughout retirement.
For sure. And you mentioned living longer. On average, women are living 5 to 6 years longer than men. So that's part of the issue. Also, you know, time out of the workforce, not just caring for young children, but also caring for aging parents, aging relatives. It's kind of that double whammy. That means less wages. It also means less Social Security, less time paying into that system.
That's right. You know, these are the different types of life events that can happen. It really can have a financial impact on their lives. And again, a lot of this is not really something they planned on happening.
Right.
It's just a life event. That's what happens. And now here they are having to face that reality.
Yeah, for sure. And then another statistic, which, you know, it always makes my skin boil every time I think about it, but it's the reality that on average, women earn about 82 cents for every dollar that men earn. So that can lead to less saved over their lifetimes as well. So out of the gate, we have less wages, more time out of the workforce. We're living longer, which means that the potential is there for us to have to navigate through long-term care and higher healthcare costs as well.
Right. So right out of the chute, we're kind of already behind the 8 ball, if you will.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where, okay, these are what the challenges that we're going to face. Now we start talking through, okay, how can we maybe address them and possibly stay ahead of them before they actually become reality?
For sure. Well, what are some misconceptions that you have found that women have often had about their financial futures, or mistakes that they're making when they are trying to plan for retirement on their own?
It's always very interesting because nearly every household, conversation that I have, especially when there's husband and wife, it's always kind of fun. I always like to kind of pick out which of the two, when they look at a retirement plan, which of the two of them is going to simply want to know what time is it, and the other one's going to want to know how is the plan built, how is the clock built, right? And so what I mean by that is a lot of times in husband and wife scenarios, the husband's kind of taken charge of the finances over the years.
Right.
Like in our household, Rhonda's not really the one who's making the ideal scenario as far as, creating a retirement plan for us. It's kind of my job, obviously.
Right, that's your wheelhouse.
Right. But she handles the finances. I don't know how to pay a bill. She does all that. So my point is, since I've kind of taken that lead, as most men do in most households, sometimes I think the female, that the wife, the lady needs to kind of maybe realize what's going on with that plan. They trust their husband, so therefore, he can handle it. It's okay. I think that's one thing that can possibly come back to hurt us down the road.
Right.
I think another thing is, if they're forced into that situation, maybe through a divorce or maybe it's the loss of a husband, now all of a sudden they're thinking maybe it's too late. There's no help for me. That becomes an overwhelming scenario for a lot of ladies. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Who do I go to? Who's going to help me with this?
Right.
And all of a sudden they just kind of feel like, it's too late, I have no hope. And that's what we're here to kind of help, explain to everybody today, is just simply say, let's address it and let's walk through how we create solutions for folks.
How can starting early help women combat what we said out the gate, right? We have all these different things stacked against us that make financial planning more necessary for women than men, but how can starting earlier help?
There's that whole adage of that eighth wonder of the world, compound interest.
Yes.
The earlier that we start, the more flexibility, the more gains, I should say, that we can realize from starting earlier. And then going into the second point, some flexibility. If we start early and our account values have appreciated over time, now all of a sudden we maybe have some flexibility in case something like that should pop up. All of a sudden an unexpected divorce pops up, or a husband passes away unexpectedly. Maybe now, because we've started earlier, we've got that portfolio that can create some flexibility and maybe gives us some time to make those adjustments.
Right. Well, it's interesting, how it works in couples. I had grown up in a household where my father had managed the finances, and he included my mom in that conversation. But subconsciously, I kind of took it to understand, oh, that's the guy's role, right? Like, that's what he does. And I remember thinking to myself, well, someday I'm going to get married and the husband will handle all of this. Well, here I was still single in my early 30s, and I didn't have Prince Charming on a white horse to help me. I had to figure it out.
Right.
But then when my husband and I did get married, the funny part of it was he had grown up in a household where his mother had managed all the finances, and he had spent his single years saying, I can't wait till I get married so I can just pass this stuff off to my wife and she can handle it. So it was interesting. Right around that time was when I got into this industry, but it is so important for couples to be on the same page, for women to really be empowered for the unexpected, especially with all those statistics that we shared. So if a woman is watching right now and going, yes, that's me, I need some help figuring this out, or making sure that whatever plan is in place, if she is a part of a couple, that the plan's going to last for her, what would you say to someone who's kind of thinking through all these things, for maybe even for the first time?
I think what's so important about this, to Kristin's question, is let's sit down and have the conversation, especially for the husband and wives. It doesn't really matter, I think, for who's leading the charge, but especially if the husband's in charge of the finances, in case of the fact that, life happens as it sometimes can. Yep. All of a sudden now we maybe outlive our husband, or heaven forbid, I hope there's not a divorce that comes up, but having that conversation ahead of time so you understand these are some things I probably should be aware of, and we can start planning through and having the conversation so that we can be prepared prior to that event possibly ever occurring.
And this is why you're so passionate about offering that complimentary written financial plan. Why don't you help our viewers understand a little bit more about what they can expect when they call and connect in through the show today?
So when you call in, we're going to have what's called a get acquainted conversation. I'm going to have a few little pieces of paper in front of me. I'm going to take some notes. you're going to bring in some statements. And you'll know all of this ahead of time, because when you call in and reach out to a member of our team, you'll be placed onto our calendar at a time that fits your availability. And then you'll be given, we'll email you or mail you a checklist so you know what documents that you need to bring in. So we have that conversation. We understand where it is, where you're currently at, what type of finances you have, and what's the timeline according to the overall retirement income plan. So that way, when we have the second conversation, now we can reveal what Kristin just shared is that complimentary written financial plan.
Wonderful. Tim, thank you so much. I'm excited to continue this important conversation with you. To our viewers at home, that number to call to schedule your time to come in and have this important get acquainted conversation so that you can be on the road to receiving a complimentary written financial plan. Simply call the number on the bottom of your screen, 888-992-7829. Or if you'd prefer to connect online, you can simply take out your smartphone, open up the camera app, just scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team will reach out and connect with you to schedule your time to come in and receive that complimentary written financial plan that way as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be diving into some of the strategies specifically to empower women with the unique challenges that we face from a financial planning standpoint. Stay with us.
I remember telling my dad when I was a senior at Illinois State University, Dad, I always want to run my own small business of some sort of fashion. Didn't really know what that looked like. And then in February of 2000, my wife and I celebrated the birth of our firstborn, Cameron. And at the time we were living in Denver. About a couple of weeks after his birth, my mom and dad were going to make the trip out. And I remember that morning, my dad calling and saying, hey, Mom's not feeling good today, so we're going to postpone leaving today. We'll try to leave tomorrow. And unfortunately, tomorrow just kept coming and coming and coming. It never showed up. So a couple months passed and we decided to go ahead and make the drive back to Central Illinois. And the first time my mom met Cameron she was in a hospital bed. The doctor diagnosed her with very aggressive terminal small cell cancer. My very first Father's Day there in June of 2000 was the last Sunday my mom was ever alive ever again. It was shortly thereafter that when my father went and received some financial advice and we started talking a little bit more detail about finances, and I started to look at these statements and I said, Dad, this guy's taking advantage of you. He's doing so much buying and selling in your account that you're losing a ton of money to pay his commissions. I said, I'm gonna start earning my licenses right now to become a financial advisor, because what you just experienced, I think, is happening way too often in our industry. I wanna focus my life on not just making a living, I wanna make a difference. It was not an easy journey. It was certainly not a smooth ride at all. It was a lot of ups and downs. Success is not owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristin Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and today we are having a very important conversation all about the unique retirement planning needs that women face. We want to empower more women to retire securely, and really a lot of what we're talking about today applies to all people. But it is specifically important, as we talked about in the first segment, there's just a lot of challenges that we as women face that need to be addressed, and that's why we're having this conversation today. I know we want to talk about some strategies, right? To help, that have ways that you are able to help women specifically navigate through these challenges. But what would you say, this is a question for all people, what would you say is the first step for someone to take who might feel just overwhelmed by this entire financial planning process?
And that's a very, very good description, because it is. It's a foreign language. We don't understand it. We can be bombarded with information from TikTok and YouTube and Facebook, all of that social media. And we can just be like, how do we understand this?
Right.
Let's start with the language we do speak. Let's start with our current financial situation, right? Let's look at your current income. Let's look at your expenses. Do we have any liabilities we're still paying down? Then making sure we always want to make sure we incorporate a spending plan. Some people refer to that as a budget. I try not to say that bad word.
I like spending plan better, right?
Yeah, I think it resonates more with people that way. But I think if we start there, then I think we can build, because now we've got a good foundation. We can speak their language. They know those numbers. Now we can take that and evolve that into the next phase.
Right. Well, specifically though for women, because I know that's what we're really focusing this conversation on, what are some specific retirement saving strategies that women should take advantage of to help them navigate through these challenges?
There's a lot of options out there that have some specific details to them. So I want to refer to my notes to make sure I don't say something. I think number one, start early. Start aggressively. You get that job right out of college, and you're working for an employer who offers you a 401k, especially if they offer you a match. Put the dollars in up to the match at least.
Yes, at least.
And then from there, like for example, for 2025, you can contribute up to $23,500 for the year. Now, starting out, we may not be able to put that amount of money away, but at least we are aware that that's available to us. For those of us who are a little bit older in life, and I say us because clearly I'm there. For anybody who's 50 and older, you can contribute an extra $7,500 into that 401k. So now you're at $31,000 for the year. That's a robust number.
Yes, those catch-up contributions, I think that's especially helpful for people who are afraid that they waited too late or they didn't start soon enough. It's amazing how that compound interest can come into play even after age 50, right?
That's right, because if we're thinking, holy cow, I just turned 50, well, retirement's not quite there yet, but it's getting closer, right? That horizon's getting very, very close. So I think it's a good idea to take advantage of the catch-up contributions. I think another one too that I have found that a lot of people are not aware of this is the spousal IRA. So therefore, let's think through this a little bit. Husband and wife at home, husband's out doing the job, wife staying home raising the kids.
Right.
There is combined income coming into the household. So he's clearly eligible for an IRA because he's working, he's earning income. But because they're married filing jointly, she's also eligible to contribute to an IRA account.
Yes.
So therefore, I think it's so imperative to include that. Number one, understand it. Number two, how much can we put into that? And number three, build that into the spending plan, because that is something I think, unfortunately, some folks are missing. Not because of maybe it's a deliberate decision, but they weren't aware of that. So I think that's another key way of maybe getting somebody caught up. If they're not quite where they think they should be. Let's go ahead and have that conversation, and let's look at how we can incorporate the spousal IRA into the overall plan.
And you're right. So many folks are not even aware that that's an option. I know you've had that conversation. People are like, wait, I've been working with somebody else. They've never even told me that this was available to me, right?
Right. It can catch us off guard from the standpoint of, if I'm not working, therefore I really can't contribute to it. Well, if you're single, then clearly, and if there's no earned income, then yeah, we may not be able to contribute according to the IRS. And there's other things we can do, but as far as husband and wife in the household together, there is such a thing as a spousal IRA, and by all means, I hope you're able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then also I find a lot of folks aren't aware of, because there's now a higher catch-up contribution for folks who are over the age of 60. So do you want to touch on those numbers?
Absolutely. So when you get to the magical age of 60, you can put another $11,250 into that 401k. So now that raises that overall limit to over $34,750 each year for the ages of 61 through 63. So again, if you have that thought of, it's too late, it's not too late. It is not too late. Sit down, let's have the conversation. Let's understand what you're allowed to contribite to, and what does the spending plan enable you to contribute into these accounts.
Yes, and what to put where, right?
Absolutely.
How
yes.
much,
where should it
what,
go?
and where. Yes, those are three very important questions for sure. Well, let's talk about Social Security a little bit, because we talked about the fact that women are living longer than men on average. And so the role of Social Security in a woman's retirement plan is really, really crucial. How do you help them specifically optimize their benefits?
You know, that topic, in fact, we did a show on that not too long ago. You know, that topic is so, there's so many opinions out there, so many ideas on that. So to answer your question, Kristin, what we do is simply just grab their current statement and look at that. So again, if I'm going back to husband and wife first and understand, okay, one Social Security benefit might be here, the other one might be here. If the lady's Social Security benefit is a little bit less, we want to talk through that. So that way we can talk through and say, okay, if you've not turned on Social Security yet, and it needs to be a part of the overall plan, we'll talk about, okay, whose payout is what, and when should we turn it on? But what I'm looking at is what happens, not to talk morbid, but what happens when one of the spouses passes away? And let's talk actuarially speaking. Husband, more times than not, passes away first. So now the surviving spouse is the wife. She's left behind. So she'll take over his Social Security benefit because it might have been the higher of the two benefit. But now all of a sudden hers goes away. So that's one scenario we talk through. So how do we optimize the Social Security benefit for husband and wife? But if there is a situation where the death occurs prior to turning on Social Security. I can think of a story right now. We helped that surviving spouse go through that. And, you know, I met them, the two of them together. This was back in 2016. So it's been a number of years that I've been working with them. And right after we started working together, we put together the plan. We moved an old 401k, kind of dormant, sitting there, not really doing anything. We brought it into a plan. And they were like, we're good for right now, but we'll get back to you as retirement looms closer. All of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a phone call. And all of a sudden now we get the tragic news that he has been diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer and life is probably not going to last much longer for him. So we sat back down, and now after he had passed away, now the conversation was with not only just with her, but it's also with her son, her daughter, and son-in-law. And what we're able to do with that horrific situation was really to optimize the Social Security. We showed her how she should be taking the income off of her husband's Social Security benefit. Therefore, she was delaying her own primary benefit. And because, as we know, if you defer your Social Security benefit past what's called your full retirement age, every year that you defer that up until the age of 70, Social Security will add another 8% to that monthly payout. So if that makes sense for us to do that, that's a way we're not only optimizing the Social Security, but in her case, we maximize it. So in other words, she wanted to work for a few more years. She wasn't quite ready to retire. So she was realizing some income from wages. She had the Social Security benefit from her husband. Meanwhile, she was deferring her own primary benefit. And at age 70, we flipped the switch.
To change which one she was collecting from,
That's right. We changed it from his to hers, gave herself a raise, and now she went into retirement with a little bit more income than she had prior to retirement.
Wow. And I love that you were able to help her navigate that, because a lot of folks aren't even aware that there is that there are strategies that exist to help you maximize and optimize your benefit. And especially for women, this is so crucial. Research shows that 80% of women will die single. This is why it's so important to have that plan in place prior to when that day comes, right?
We know we want to talk through that. It's a conversation that's not real pleasant. We get it. But from the standpoint of planning ahead, rather than having to go through a surprise, or then all of a sudden now you have the regret. We should have done this sooner. I wish I'd had this conversation sooner. Don't let that be you. Let's sit down, let's have the conversation. It's not the ideal conversation. We can talk about other fun things about retirement income planning, like what we're going to do in retirement. But we also want to make sure that retirement includes both of you. We do not know the day or the time when we're going to take our last breath. And for husband and wife who venture into retirement together, let's make sure the plan not only takes care of the two of you while you're both together in retirement, but let's make sure that we have the longevity plan also built into your complimentary written financial plan.
Yes, for both spouses, no matter how long each lives. And I know you treat each and every situation with such care and compassion, and I'm excited for more folks to get to connect with you, to have this buttoned up. If this is something that you have known that you've been needing to do and you've been putting it off, let today be the day that you make that change and you pick up the phone and call this number below so that you can get on the path to knowing that you have a plan in place to secure your retirement income needs. 888-992-7829 is that number to call. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
Writing a book was an idea that I came up with several years ago, but I never really engaged in the idea because I thought, it's too big of a task. Until about late 2022, I found the publisher that I thought would possibly be a good fit, and it has been. I'm really excited to introduce my book, which is entitled License to Spend, a retirement plan based upon income as opposed to IFCOME. What I really wanted to do with the book was simply just try to connect with folks to meet them where they're at. They're about to embark upon a journey they've never encountered before. They're uncertain, it's a little bit overwhelming. So I thought, if I could put together just kind of a personalized book, just to hopefully make that connection with somebody so that they maybe feel like we won't really have to do this by ourselves. We can engage with somebody who's already helped other people just like us, embark upon that journey, and just try to put it together in kind of an easy to read format, connect with them on their thoughts, their concerns, and just try to provide that resource that can kind of help address those ideas and share with them what kind of they can expect whenever they come in and talk to us about that retirement income plan that they would like to have. With every conversation I have with folks, whether it's the first time we've met, whether it's the second time we've talked through the plan, or if we're going through our 10th annual review together, my hope is to be able just to provide some type of information and knowledge maybe they weren't aware of before. I hope to be able to create that takeaway where they're like, wow, I didn't really know that, but that makes sense. The publisher, when we were putting together the thoughts and putting together the plan on how we were going to extrapolate all these thoughts and ideas into this book, he said, one of the most important parts of the book is going to be getting, testimonials from some of your clients. And, I'd never asked my clients those questions before. I didn't really have any idea. I just knew that they liked the plan. We put the plan together and we review the plan on a regular basis. And man, when you get those testimonials back from people and you can see the impact that it had on their lives, it was unbelievable. And in fact, that's my favorite part of the book. It's incredibly powerful.
Well, welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristin Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and today we've been talking a lot about the unique retirement planning needs that women face and how to address those needs. We were talking during the break, and Tim works with a lot of married couples. You work with a lot of single men, but you said when it comes to single individuals, predominantly you're working with single women. And so I'd love for you to share specifically, what are some things that you do to help those women plan for their retirement?
Well, number one, we want to make the connection with them and let them know they are not alone. There's been other ladies, unfortunately, have gone through that same situation. You're not alone. We know how to walk you through that path. I think the second thing that we do is we refer to the book. Again, we were so blessed to have so many of our clients share their time and share their thoughts and comments with the testimony. And a good bulk of the testimonies are from some single ladies. In fact, I was telling you about this before we went on air. Just since the last time we got together, we've now been blessed to bring on 2 more households, both combined with single ladies from each household. So that just spoke to my heart from the standpoint of, we want to help these ladies understand the options available to them.
Yes.
Number one, you're not alone. There is a plan out there, and we'll walk you through that learning curve. We're going to go at your pace. We're going to go at the pace that you're comfortable with. So because this is a foreign language to most folks, so we're going to just take our time with it and explain it into a situation that ultimately, again, leads to a roadmap that we can refer to on a regular basis.
For sure. Well, I know we have less than a minute and a half in today's show, but any inspiring stories come to mind that you want to leave our viewers with based on this conversation?
I think one that comes to mind, I'll keep this really quick, was a lady, unfortunately, who went through a divorce. And the attorney that was helping her with that situation, I've known this gentleman for a number of years, and he referred me to her. And so we connected, we talked through some things, and again, we went through the fact finding. We unpacked the details, what she had, what she was going to receive through the divorce, and then we went through the standpoint of, okay, let's take it one step further. What does retirement look like for you? 2 sons, a couple of grandkids, going to require some travel to go see them. So we just simply went through a retirement income plan for her through this new chapter of life, and just basically give her that roadmap, which, using her words, was very empowering for her to have, so she could successfully navigate this new phase of life.
And I know that had to have been such a blessing for her to know that she wasn't alone, and that you were able to help her pick up the pieces and start fresh, and be able to make the best of a situation that was unfortunate, and yet empower her to still retire securely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Tim, thank you so much for being willing to have this important conversation, and thank you for joining us. Again, that number to call is 888-992-7829, or you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Income is the Outcome.